My name is Allan Chochinov, and I'm the chair of the MFA in Products of Design program here at SVA. I want to welcome all of you to our second thesis presentation day, to those here in the room, and to those tuning into the live stream. Today is a really big day. It's a day of reflection, a day of celebration. It's a day for the students to share their work, for the department to share some of the fruits of its labors, and for you to share your enthusiasm for the enterprise of design and the power of design. It's also a profound day for the friends and the families of our students who have joined us here, and I want to extend a particular thank you to them. I know your support and encouragement has meant everything to these 15 individuals who've dedicated the past 2 years to this graduate program and who have committed themselves to finding purpose in their work, developing strong points of view, and putting together a signature project that, in part, represents their worldview of design and their potential contributions to it. The air conditioning just cut in. It was really nice for a second, and now it's gone. I don't know. I needed it for a second. Oh, thank you very much. The power of design is the tool that we as designers strive towards leveraging, and the aspiration that we as educators strive towards imparting. It's the power of design that can transform an idea into a reality. It's the power of design that can transpose a single product into a service that helps hundreds of people and can transform that service into a platform that can help millions of people. Or conversely, it is the power of design that can help make us humble, rejecting the incessant mandate of scaling everything up and instead keeping things small and local and modest. And of course, it's the power of design that can wreak untold harm to ourselves, our cultures, and our planet. Because design, perhaps, wields its most ominous power when it multiplies itself out. When a designer creates one thing, whether it's a logo or a laptop, a poster or a pregnancy test, a semi-automatic weapon or a fully semiconductive thread, the premise of design is that it ends in more than just one thing, that it multiplies out. And when design multiplies out, its consequences become more important than its original function, or indeed its original form. I've said for years now that designers think they're in the artifact business, but that they're not. Rather, they're in the consequence business. And this has informed one of the essential elements of the mission of the MFA in Products of Design degree. We don't just consider the artifact, and we don't just consider its sometimes predictable outcomes. We treat them, or at least we try to treat them, as one and the same thing. This, as you can imagine, those of you newish to design and those of you who have been grappling with this for the past couple years, it's very hard to do. But one way that we can make sense of it, and I'll offer this to the audience today as a kind of a cheat sheet, is by thinking about these two facets of design, the artifact and the consequence, with the simple phrase, means to an end. When discussing the topic of technology, John Thackara, one of our faculty at large, author of the book In the Bubble, and a dear friend, writes that we've built a technology-focused society that is remarkable on means, but hazy about ends. It's no longer clear to which question all this stuff, tech, is an answer, or what value it adds to our lives. The fulcrum of John's argument, of course, buzzes around the blurry halo of purpose. And so design becomes even more challenging because purpose is a normative, sometimes subjective, and oftentimes contentious thing. We want purposeful design, of course, but who says what's purposeful and who determines what a valuable purpose is or isn't? The students will show you a ton of things today. You will see products, you will also see social interventions. You'll see brands and business models and apps and services and performances and experiences. But just as means and ends can be convoluted, you may find yourself at times wondering what is true, what is convincing, and what is, well, ready for the world. I think I can help by drawing a useful distinction. You will be presented with research-led design. Let's think of that as means leading to an end. And you're going to see design-led research. Let's think of that as ends leading to means. The first kind of design, research-led design, is pretty conventional. Students use a prescribed protocol to investigate a subject, a territory as we like to call it. And then they develop designs that respond to those investigations. It's easy to think of these kinds of offerings as solutions to a problem. And it's not uncommon to hold this kind of design to the rigor of the marketplace. Would I buy that? Is a common refrain here. Or more preferably, does this thing deserve to be in the world? Does it create value? The second kind of work is the design-led research kind of work. Here, a designer creates a piece of design, a product, a business model, a press release, an advocacy campaign, a speculative scenario, a kind of story that provokes dialogue or shines a new light on a subject. And here, a marketable thing is not the goal of the design in the least. The thing is a lens for learning about something or proposing something or revealing something. Earlier in the school year, on Election Day last November, these same students, under the tutelage of Manuel Toscano and Natalie Balthrop, created a design intervention in Washington Square Park where they set up a non-voting booth, a booth where people who didn't vote that day could declare that they didn't vote and talk about why. Reasons ranged from feeling a sense of disenfranchisement to not even being aware that there was an election being held that day. But the booth was a piece of design used as a means, not as an end. And its design material? Well, its design material was permission. The booth gave people who might have previously been embarrassed or ashamed or apathetic permission to engage with each other in a way that, at the very least, listened to them, engage them in a conversation, and force them into a kind of reckoning with their decision to not participate that day anyway in our democracy. We like the idea of extending the meaning of design materials here. One of the things that we challenge in this department is the idea that design fundamentals are principally aesthetic. Traditionally, good design has been described as the perfect marriage of form and function. That if something looks good and works well, then it will be good design. Of course, these days, good is certainly a nice thing to have, but it's also entirely insufficient for the difficult, imbalanced, inequitable world we live in. You'll see today that our students have a different definition of what a design material can and should be. Some are dealing with the material of community morale in their work, or of repair as a design material. Others are looking at how making everything in our culture spectacular is depriving us of the simple material of consideration and authenticity. Behavior is often thought about as a goal of design. We speak of behavior change as a highly desirable end. But many of our students are using behavior as a design material, as a tool to uncover something unseen, underappreciated, and often understood. And yes, I am making that a word, if only for this afternoon. So how do we negotiate all of these challenges and all of these abstract metamaterials? Well, it's actually pretty simple and straightforward. We work at it. We do research and observation. We use deduction, induction, abduction. That's a lot of ductions. We consult with subject matter experts and co-create with our users. We construct speculative futures as a way to interrogate boundaries, limits, even moralities, maybe especially moralities. And we use magic. Nobody in the business world wants to hear about it, and perhaps nobody in the design world wants to own up to it. But even George Nelson, that most famous modernist design practitioner, said that design is not a science and never will be. I really love this quote. And the mysterious Robin Matthews said that design is where science and art break even. How wonderful is that? And finally, we make prototypes and test them. And we make a ton of mistakes. And then hopefully we admit them, sometimes in public. We admit them to acknowledge that design is an iterative practice, that like with most things, making a movie, poetry, entrepreneurship, teenage love, that 95% of it ends up on the cutting room floor. It's probably a little harsh on the teenage love. business. Well, it ends up on the cutting room floor, and that's as it should be. Because doing things that are exceptional means doing things that are true to that word's literal meaning, that they are, by definition, exceptions. They're rare and hard to come by. So the students are going to show you a lot of how the sausage is made today. Okay. Unlike almost all thesis presentations around the world, you are not going to see only finished, shiny, singular product pitches. Rather, each student has been tasked with telling the broad and sometimes messy story of their thesis and showing you multiple embodiments of that thesis. And this has been hard for them to do. And indeed, many of their outputs are finished and are shiny, very shiny. But the comprehensive work of their theses is in their thesis books. Collectively, these hundreds of thousands of words will be available in about 3 weeks on Blurb. Products of Design has proudly partnered with Design Observer and Blurb to participate in the thesis book project, and will post a notice on our Twitter when these students' thesis books are available for download or purchase in hardcover. They are really, really great and tell the most comprehensive story of the work of the thesis. So, about the name of today's event. We named this year's presentations Second. This is the second graduating class of our still new program. Cheers to that. Yes. Good. Thank you. I don't know why they left. The third group is sitting amongst you, likely already worrying about their presentations at exactly this time next year. You can wave your hands, right? There you go. It's really soon. You got to start preparing. But there are other reasons why we chose the title Second. Seconds are good. We savor a second cup of coffee in the morning, and we especially adore second helpings of dessert in the evening. We love giving people second chances, and in this country, we cannot resist the appeal of a second act, of giving someone a second shot at redemption. We measure the moments in our lives in literal seconds, and we even split seconds and attempt to get closer, perhaps, to that transcendent thin slice we find thrilling and then fleeting. We find humor in Second City. We find online liberation in Second Life. We fight over secondhand smoke and the meaning of the Second Amendment, but our hearts leap when we get asked out on that second date. Some of us take a second job when we need to put more food on the table, and we've learned to pause for at least a couple seconds when we're not sure whether to commit to something that we think may be important to us or important for us. The second law of thermodynamics, you knew this was coming, right? Oscar and EC and Sovic. The second law of thermodynamics dictates that the state of entropy of the universe will always increase over time, that things will necessarily move from an organized state to a more disorganized state. Designers hate the second law of thermodynamics. They spend their entire lives trying to impose order on random and disorganized systems. But as they attempt to bring this order, designers are always second-guessing themselves. My students know that this drives me crazy. Stop thinking so much. I'm always saying, build something, build anything. Designers are forever attempting to find another, alternative, second way of looking at something. And indeed, this does come second nature to them. And that's why we're proud to count ourselves in their number. So we love seconds, and we love our second students. And we hope you're going to love what they have poured their hearts, their souls, their hands, and their passions into. They've worn their thesis projects as a kind of second skin. One student in particular has literally worn her thesis as her second skin since last September. You'll meet her soon. So these projects matter so much to them, and we hope that their work can convince you over the next few hours that they could really matter to you too. Before we start, of course, I want to take my own second, my second verse, same as the first, and thank the people I thanked last year and whom I'll never stop thanking, with some wonderful new additions, of course. I first want to thank David Rhodes, Tony Rhodes, and Jeff Neeson for their amazing and unbounded support for this department and its mission. Welcome. Yes. I want to thank Stephen Heller for his friendship and for co-founding Products of Design, and my SVA colleagues, my fellow department heads and institution-wide family who have been such steady guides over these past few years. I want to thank our tireless staff, Gabrielle Kellner, Marco Manriquez, and Alicia Wessler, for everything that they do, day after day, student after student, faculty after faculty, and now I can say thesis presentation after thesis presentation. Thank you so much. Bring that baby back. I want to thank the director and personnel of the Visible Futures Lab, John, Leaf, Boris, and Tak, for enabling the students' visions to become physical and digital realities, and to thank Adam and the entire SVA theater staff and crew here today for making today a physical and digital and cinematic reality. To our incredible faculty, all 38 of them, largest ever, thank you for mentoring these students and for building the scaffolding and support structure of the curriculum. And I want to thank today in particular Andrew Schloss for co-teaching the foundational Thesis 1 course last semester, and Abby Covert for shepherding the Thesis 2 course this semester. I want to thank Brent Arnold, Emily Baltz, Stephen Dean, Jana Gilbert, and Elliot Montgomery for stewarding the students during this past final semester when the rubber really hits the thesis road. I'd like to give them actually. And to every first-year student of the program who have been working today's event and who you will be seeing here in 1 year's time, thank you. You have provided new energy and passion to the room, and I know that our thesis students will miss you as they move into their next adventures. Thanks to Chelsea Stewart for designing the identity and collateral for today's event, along with many of the department's graphics and identities, and to Wanjung Hung for providing documentation all year, and today, along with Leila Santiago de Oliveira Santos, I do love saying that. I may have done a good job, we'll see, and Roya Ramazani. Thank you and welcome to Alexander Welsh for heading up photography this afternoon. You'll see Alex and these others making their way around the room, mostly to document your smiling faces. And thank you to Victor de la Cruz for lending a tech hand today as well. I want to thank Liz Danzico, I want to thank Liz Danzico for all her advice and guidance for years now, to Sinclair Smith for all the extras, along with his mentorship of the students in all its myriad dimensions. Thank you, Richard Tyson, for your help laying the foundation of the pedagogy of the program and for your generous, generous wisdom. And of course, I want to thank Victoria, Bronwyn, and all of my family for, well, for everything in the world to me. To close then, I want to quote designer Lorinda Mamo, who said, "Every great design begins with an even better story." So let's get to it. It is time to hear some of those stories. First up on our second thesis presentations, please welcome Julia Plevin.